Hello and welcome to another Ashwaubenon School District Give Me 5 podcast. The title of episode 6 is Phones in the Classroom. This is a very popular topic right now, as we know many of our students have devices in schools. As if I just did a simple Google search of phones in school, this is what you get. We know that most of our kids have phones in their pocket. Many of them have data plans. Just about all of them have the ability to send texts, and those numbers are growing daily. What we need to talk about is how we can harness these as positive tools in the classroom as opposed to distraction tools. I think many of us, are aware of posters that were like this. The idea was, I want your phone in your pocket, I want it in your backpack, I don't want to see it, please don't take it out. And we need to change that thinking to how can we use cell phones as something that enhances learning as opposed to interrupting learning. Thinking about this topic, it brought me back to a previous podcast I did last year that talked about the hashtag pencil chat in Twitter. Pencil chat started because a lot of, basically with educators who wanted to have some fun, and they took out the term technology or cell phone or laptop or iPad, and they stuck in the word pencil to talk about how we're looking at things. And one of my favorite pencil chats was this one right here. If we give every student a pencil, we'll have no control over the things they write. And that takes me back to when I was in school. And of course, we remember things like this, right? Sending notes back and forth. Please check yes or no. Do you like me? That nervousness. Or I had many notebooks that looked like this with games and tic-tac-toe, good old hangman, the old box game. Or we just doodle, right? And the point was, and the point is of this, is that any student device can be extremely distracting in the classroom. And that doesn't matter. It could be a pencil. It could be a rubber band. But it could be an iPod, or it could be a phone. With any of this, it really is not technology. It's classroom management. And I think, coming from when I was a teacher, I think about having clear rules as to what's expected use versus inappropriate use. And talking to students about, what, we are going to use our cell phones in our classroom. We're going to use them for this, this, and this. However, we're not going to use them for this. And if I see you using it for this, here's the clear consequence. And that consequence might be something that you'll handle in your classroom. Maybe you'll talk to administration about. But I think it needs to be very cut and dry what you expect from your students and what the consequences are if those expectations aren't met. So that being said, I want to talk now about a lot of the positive ways that you can use texting in the classroom or use cell phones in the classroom. This infographic I'm going to show you from EdTech is just a pretty awesome tool. It has all kinds of great facts about cell phones and texting in your classroom. And each fact has an article or research behind it. So the one I want to show you, and you can go through this later to get more in depth, but there's one on here that talks about how it increases test scores, right? If you click on this, it'll go to some deeper level, but it talks about using texting as a teaching tool. And one of the things that I thought was kind of cool about this is it's a few years old, but it's a national article, but it actually quotes a teacher from Pulaski, which is kind of neat. But one of the things she did is talk about, she had a conversation with her parents and gave her parents choices, saying, you know what, I am going to use cell phones in the classroom. Do you give me permission to do so? If so, can your students use their data plan? Can they only use texting? What can they use it for? And she had clear goals of what she wanted to use the classroom for, and she made sure that parents were on board with that, because what you don't want is a situation where you have kids use the cell phone in their classroom and then find out that they're going to get charged for something that you asked them to do. So make sure that your students understand what they can and can't use the phone for, as well as parents, okay? Because once you have that, there's all sorts of fantastic ways to use them in the classroom. This next article, which I'll also link at the end of the video, at the bottom of the video in the podcast, is 40 quick ways to use mobile phones in the classroom. All sorts of great ideas. I'm not going to go through a lot of these. The first one talks about using educational apps. If you click on that, it'll go to greater options and more links that'll show you some apps you can use in the classroom. Whether they have Android-based phones or iPhones or anything, if they do have a data plan that they can use at school, there are millions of free apps. My previous podcast on Gimme 5 was all about finding apps for iOS device. Some of these are content-driven apps. Some are productivity or presentation apps that your students could use and have available in the classroom. So all kinds of things out there that are great. The other things that they talk about here, they talk about using QR codes and scanning things, back channeling, all sorts of good devices. One of the things I want to talk to you about, the last thing I want to talk to you about, are tools that you can use that allow for you to have communication online with your students. one of the biggest complaints I hear about cell phone use is that when I'm in front of the class and I'm giving a 10-minute lecture or I'm giving out content, my students are disengaged and they go right to their phones and they'll send a text or they'll get on social media. Well, there are some websites available that maybe you could have your students use while you're giving that information. Pull Everywhere is an app that many of you have seen. It's a website, pulleverywhere.com. What this does, it gives the ability that you can poll your students. So if you are talking about a topic, if you have some predetermined questions that you can say, you know what, right now I want you to think about what I just said, and I want you to text your answer to this number. In real time, they'll start popping up, and you get some pretty cool graphics so you can see real-time data of your students' answers. The other neat thing I like with this is that if you teach the same class twice, you can compare data from one period to another period and talk about maybe why one class thought one thing and one thought the other. Okay. A couple other sites I want to show you is remind101.com. And what remind101.com does, it's pretty cool. It basically creates a middleman between you and your student's cell phone. So basically, your students will subscribe to a class on Remind 101. You'll put information out. That information will get texted all to your students. They can see. You can give them reminders, homework reminders. You can put out questions. They never know your cell phone number, and you never know their cell phone number. So it's a pretty safe place to be. Celly, which is CEL.ly, works very similar. Again, your students will subscribe to a message stream that you then could put out messages for them to see. The one thing that Celly does too is it allows students to put messages out to the entire stream, but you as the teacher can then see which messages you want to allow to go through or not allow, so you can manage how that works. Again, all three of these, Pull Everywhere, Remind 101, and Celly, are similar, but what they do is they allow for you to give your students a space where they can communicate appropriately in school. I think if you had to give a short lecture or had to get some content out, if you had some pre-decided questions that you would have posted and say, I want you to reply to Celly or reply to Pull Everywhere, or I'm going to send out a question to you on Remind 101 that I want you to respond to, your students then will find positive ways that they can use that device that's in their pocket to enhance their learning in the classroom. So again, I was way over my 5 minutes. We're at about 7.5 minutes. You know, cell phones, I know it's a very scary thing to give up a little bit of control of that device, but they are very powerful, and students can do very, very positive things with them. And I think it's taking advantage and harnessing that so you can use it in your classroom. If you have any questions about how you can implement some of these ideas, please feel free to contact me. I'd love to help. Also, in the Give Me 5 podcast, underneath the video, I'll have links to all the sites that I showed in this podcast today. So please feel free to look through and find some things in greater depth there. And that's all I have. So have a great day.